I'm Sadie, 31. The day I realized my entire family was celebrating my cousin Madison's wedding without me was the day I finally understood what it felt like to be erased from your own story. If you found yourself in my place at 31, would you try reaching out or would you walk away? I'd honestly love to read your thoughts below. I was standing barefoot in my Austin condo, a half-empty mug of lukewarm coffee in hand, sunlight flooding in through the window. I had woken up early that morning to a gentle ping on my phone, expecting the usual flood of work emails or maybe a reminder from my friend Brooke about our lunch plans. Instead, the screen was crowded with notifications, tagged photos, stories, and a cascade of comments. A quick scroll, and there they were, rows and rows of smiling faces, my entire family gathered around a giant cake decorated in blush, pinks, and whites. The caption read, "Bridal shower for Madison. Couldn't be happier for our girl." I tapped through each photo, heart thudding louder with every familiar face I saw. Aunt Linda glowing with pride, Karen, my own mother, toasting with a glass of champagne, even Jessica, my usually distant cousin, beaming next to Madison. Everyone was there except me. I blinked, thinking surely I must have missed something. Maybe the invitation had gotten lost. I checked my inbox. Nothing but the same stream of bills and discount offers. I scrolled further, searching for a stray text. All I found was a single impersonal, "Hope you're well from Madison," sent weeks ago. A sharp pain settled in my chest, cold and clear. I remembered just last week, carefully selecting a set of hand-pressed wildflower cards for Madison and handwriting a note wishing her happiness. I'd even offered to help design her wedding invitations, but the message had only gotten a polite thumbs up. Not once had she mentioned a bridal shower or the big plans that were so clearly underway. I set my mug down too quickly. Coffee splashed out, pooling on the countertop, dark and bitter. I stood frozen as memories from the past years tumbled back, holiday gatherings where Madison's achievements were center stage, my own milestones glossed over Aunt Linda's stories of Madison's college triumphs, the way family always asked about her, never about me. It was as if in this family I was an afterthought, a name left off the guest list on purpose. Suddenly, the silence of my condo felt deafening. My phone buzzed again, a new photo. This time, the whole family stood arm in front of the Barton Springs Resort, signed their faces flushed with celebration. Even Sharon, our elderly great aunt, who rarely left home, had made it out for the occasion. I felt my heart sink. The realization landed heavy. This wasn't an oversight, it was a decision. I thought about calling my mother, but what would I even say? Would she admit it? Would she brush it off with a laugh, saying I was too sensitive? Part of me wanted to scream, to demand answers. But another part, the part that had been ignored and overlooked for so many years, just felt tired. I stared out the window, watching a pair of doves settle on the balcony railing, wishing I could fly away and start over somewhere else. My phone, still open to social media, now showed a video clip. Madison, in her new white dress, laughed as she was handed a tower of gifts. "To Madison, the heart of our family," someone shouted. There were cheers, clapping joy, but not a single mention of me. I closed the app. For a long minute, I just breathed in and out, letting the ache settle. This was the moment I realized when you stop hoping for things to change. When you start wondering if maybe you deserve better than a seat at a table where your name is always forgotten. In the quiet of my apartment, I thought back to the countless times I'd told myself it didn't matter, that family was family no matter what. But this time, something inside me shifted. I looked at my reflection in the darkened window, coffee cooling on the counter, and decided I would remember this day not as a defeat, but as the beginning of a new chapter. November in Austin has its own gentle kind of chill. That Thanksgiving, I drove my small, reliable car through winding suburban streets, the kind where every house seemed to compete for best front porch decor. I was 30, and part of me hoped that this year things might feel different. The family home was Aunt Linda's, a 2-story brick house with blue shutters, a wraparound porch, and the kind of backyard made for family photos. I arrived early, my hands full, one with a fresh-baked pie, the other with a bottle of wine I'd bought on sale. Stepping inside, I was greeted by a wall of warmth, the scent of roasted turkey and cinnamon in the air. The house buzzed with the easy chaos of cousins running through the halls and grown-ups laughing in the kitchen. "Sadie, there you are, sweetheart," Aunt Linda's voice carried from the dining room, a broad smile on her face. She pulled me into a quick, perfunctory hug before glancing over her shoulder. "Madison's just finished setting the table. Isn't she wonderful? I caught Madison's eye. She was 2 years younger, polished and radiant in a new blue dress. She flashed me a bright, practiced smile. "Hey, cousin, glad you made it." She was already surrounded by relatives, her fiancé at her side, recounting their engagement story for what must have been the 10th time. As we moved to the living room, I noticed the family wall of fame photographs lining the mantel, almost all of them featuring Madison. There she was, Madison, at her high school graduation, Madison posing with a giant check at her college scholarship ceremony, Madison on her first day at the bank, and of course, Madison and her fiancé beaming beneath a string of fairy lights. My own milestones, if present at all, were hidden in group shots, faces blurred or half turned away from the camera. Dinner was a swirl of voices and clinking glasses. Aunt Linda presided at the head of the table, leading a toast to Madison. New job, new life, and the best year yet. Glasses raised, a chorus of cheers followed. My mother, Karen, added her own soft praise. "We're so proud of you, honey." Madison blushed modestly, squeezing her fiancé's hand. I waited for a pause, then quietly mentioned I finally closed on my condo last month. It's been a dream for a long time. Took me 7 years to save up, but it's all mine now. Aunt Linda smiled politely. "Oh, that's nice, dear." The room shifted eyes, quickly moving back to Madison as she described the view from her new office. Jessica piped up. Madison's already overseeing her own team. They gave her the biggest office on the floor. Madison recounted her promotion at the bank, and someone asked about her wedding plans. The table came alive, everyone offering suggestions for venues, caterers, and floral arrangements. I caught myself shrinking into my chair, folding my napkin into smaller and smaller squares. Every holiday, it seemed, played out the same. Madison's college was paid for. I'd worked 2 jobs and taken night classes to get through school. When I started my own design business, Karen had only said, "You sure you don't want a real job?" But when Madison interned at a bank, the whole family celebrated. I remembered overhearing Aunt Linda once, "Madison just needs this more than you, honey. Let her have her moment." As dessert was served, my mother turned to me, voice gentle but heavy with subtext. "You always make everything about yourself, Sadie. Just try to be happy for Madison." It was meant to sound kind, but it stung all the same. I managed to smile, helping Sharon, our great aunt, with her coffee. Across the table, Madison opened a card from Aunt Linda for the bride to be the heart of our family. She read it aloud, everyone applauding, and I realized I hadn't received a single card or note that day. Later, as I helped clear plates in the kitchen, Jessica leaned over and whispered, "You know how it is, Sadie. Madison's always been their favorite. Don't let it get to you." She squeezed my arm, and for a moment, I felt seen. But as I loaded the dishwasher and listened to the laughter echoing from the living room, I wondered how many times I'd told myself the same thing. I thought about the condo, my little corner of independence, the life I'd built piece by piece, dollar by dollar. No one had ever asked for a tour. No one had sent flowers when I'd signed the deed. That night, I lingered at the edge of the crowd as family gathered for one last group photo. Madison stood at the center, arms wide. The rest of us fanned out beside her. I tried to catch Karen's eye, but she was already arranging everyone, telling Sharon to move closer to Madison. The flash went off, freezing the moment forever. Madison glowing in the middle, the bride-to-be, and me, just another blurred face in the crowd. I left early, pie container in hand, walking out into the cool November air. I promised myself once again that next year would be different, that someday I'd stop measuring my worth against Madison's spotlight. But as I pulled out of Aunt Linda's driveway, the house behind me lit up with laughter. I realized how heavy that promise felt. Sometimes it seemed there was no room at all for people like me unless I made it myself. The new year arrived in Austin with a chill that lingered well into January, a grayness that seemed to seep into everything. Work kept me busy designing new branding projects, handling late-night emails, juggling clients who didn't care that I sometimes answered them from the quiet of my kitchen in pajamas. My condo had become both sanctuary and workplace, the only place where I didn't feel compared, measured, or ignored. Despite everything I kept trying with Madison, after the awkward Thanksgiving, I sent her a handwritten note and a small frame print I'd made Texas wildflowers and a line about growing your own joy. A week later, I received a polite thank you text. "This is so sweet, Sadie." No smiley face, no update, no mention of her wedding planning. It stung, but I told myself she was probably busy. Determined not to be left out, I reached out by email offering to help design her invitations, menus, anything she needed for the big day. "Let me know if you'd like any ideas," I wrote. "Happy to help." Her reply was nearly silent, a brief, "We're good, thanks for thinking of us." I tried again a few days later, suggesting we catch up for coffee, but Madison was swamped with work. February bled into March and the distance only grew. My mother, Karen, called sometimes, usually to discuss her garden or a sale at the grocery store. I would steer the conversation toward the wedding, asking if there was anything I could do, any plans I should know about. She always replied with the same careful neutrality. "Oh, Linda's handling everything. It's all under control. You know how she is." I let it drop, not wanting to sound desperate, but the truth was, I just wanted to belong. Then one Thursday in March, I received a message from Brooke. "Have you seen Madison's bridal shower pics? Looks like everyone had a blast." Confused, I opened my phone. My stomach dropped. Post after post from extended family, all gathered at Barton Springs Resort again. There were Madison and Aunt Linda, a mountain of pastel-wrapped gifts, the cousins in matching floral dresses, Karen helping pour punch. Even Sharon, who always complained about driving, was front and center in every photo. My name wasn't tagged anywhere. My face wasn't in a single shot. A slow ache crept, in the kind that comes from realizing you've been left out, not by accident, but by design. I scrolled through my texts, searching for any missed invitation. Nothing. I checked emails. Nothing. My mind raced, replaying every conversation, every offer I'd made. Had I offended someone? Had I misunderstood? The doubt gnawed at me. Unable to resist, I called my mother. She answered after a long pause. "Hey, honey, everything okay?" I kept my voice light. "Was there a bridal shower for Madison? I saw some pictures online." She hesitated. "Well, yes, there was. It was a small thing, really. You know how busy you are with work? We just didn't want to bother you." That answer didn't sit right. My grip tightened around the phone. I would have come, Mom. No one even asked me. Karen sighed. "Sadie, sometimes it's just easier this way. You get so sensitive, and I didn't want any drama." My breath caught. Drama, I repeated. All I wanted was to be included. There was silence on the other end, the kind that lasts too long. Finally, she murmured, "Let's not make a big deal of this, sweetheart." I hung up feeling a familiar wave of shame. Was I making a big deal? Or was this finally proof that the pattern wasn't just in my head? That night, as I scrolled through a group chat I'd once been part of, I noticed something strange. An old notification from weeks ago, a group called Maddie's Girls. I hadn't seen any new messages for days. Curious, I opened the chat. Scrolling back, my eyes landed on a short, cruel sentence posted by one of Madison's friends. "Good thing we didn't invite Sadie." Less drama this way. I stared at the words, the blood draining from my face. My hands shook as I quickly took a screenshot. Seconds later, the message vanished. Someone had deleted it, but I still had the evidence. For a long while, I just sat there, phone in hand, the proof glowing on the screen. It wasn't an oversight. They had left me out on purpose. I messaged Brooke, my voice nearly breaking. It wasn't an accident. They didn't want me there. She responded almost instantly. "That's cruel, Sadie. That's not family. Please don't blame yourself." We met at a little cafe the next day, tucked into a quiet corner. Brooke listened as I told her everything, the emails, the missed invitations, the way Karen always told me not to be dramatic. She reached across the table, squeezing my hand. "This is not about you. This is about them. You've done everything you could." I wiped at my eyes, embarrassed. The sun was just starting to set, painting the windows gold. For the first time in a long time, I allowed myself to believe that maybe, just maybe, the problem wasn't me. That night, I lay awake in bed, the screenshot saved on my phone, proof that I wasn't imagining things. The ache hadn't gone away, but it felt a little less lonely, knowing at least one person believed me. By morning, the chat was gone. I had been removed, but I still had the image, and for the first time, the urge to stop chasing the people who made me feel invisible. March arrived in Austin with bursts of green bluebonnets beginning to bloom along the highways and in every empty lot. I tried to lose myself in work, but the tension in my chest never faded. Evenings stretched long, every quiet hour filled with replayed conversations, and that damning screenshot still saved on my phone. I could no longer pretend it was all in my head. One Saturday morning, I stared at my reflection and decided enough was enough. If my mother wouldn't call, I would go to her. I grabbed my bag, slid the phone in my pocket, and drove across town to Karen's house. Her neighborhood was filled with pecan trees, sidewalks shaded by canopies of green, the lawns neatly trimmed. Karen opened the door in gardening gloves, dirt on her cheek. "Sadie, what a surprise. You should have called." "I needed to talk," I said. My voice was steady, but my heart pounded. She led me to the kitchen. The windows overlooked the backyard where the early spring sun caught the tips of the grass. Karen poured coffee, filling the silence with small talk about new tomato plants and a neighbor's yappy dog. I waited, then finally laid my phone on the table. Mom, I saw the pictures and the messages. You didn't want me at Madison's bridal shower. Her face tensed. Sadie, you're making this more dramatic than it is. We thought it would be easier if you didn't come. My hand trembled as I tapped the screenshot, sliding it toward her. Someone said, good thing we didn't invite Sadie. Less drama this way. That wasn't a mistake. I deserve the truth. Karen took a shaky breath, staring down at her mug. Honey, your Aunt Linda thought it was best. You and Madison always had your differences. I didn't want things to get uncomfortable on her big day. I felt heat rise in my cheeks. You could have told me. You didn't have to pretend. She looked away. We were trying to protect everyone's feelings, including yours. Sometimes you get so sensitive, and I just wanted things to go smoothly. My voice rose, all the years of hurt crowding in. Protect me or protect yourselves from having to deal with me. There was a long pause. Karen picked at her napkin. You know we've helped you out a lot over the years. That condo wasn't easy to buy. We've been paying your property taxes. I cut her off surprised and angry. That was your idea, Mom, not mine. I've never asked for anything. She stiffened. If this is going to be a problem, maybe you should make other plans for the weekend of the wedding. It's not too late to let things go, Sadie. My heart felt like it was folding in on itself. The room seemed suddenly colder. So you're saying, if I don't just accept being left out, you'll pull support for my home? She shook her head. No one's threatening you, sweetheart. But I think you're making this bigger than it needs to be. I stood gripping my phone. No, Mom, this is exactly as big as it needs to be. I'm tired of pretending it's not. I left without another word. As I walked down the driveway, the sun hot on my back, I felt a strange sense of relief mixed with heartbreak. The line had finally been drawn, even if I didn't want it there. Back at my condo, I called Brooke. My voice shook as I told her everything, the confrontation, the veiled threat, my mother's refusal to take responsibility. Brooke didn't try to fix it. She just listened. That's classic emotional manipulation, she said softly. You did the right thing. We met up at a small coffee shop downtown that afternoon. Brooke brought wine and takeout to my place, and we sat on my balcony as dusk settled over the city. You're not crazy, Sadie, she told me. You're just finally seeing things for what they are. I watched the lights come on in the city below, feeling empty, but also strangely grounded. I keep thinking it'll get better, that if I work harder, they'll finally see me. Brooke reached over and squeezed my hand. You've done enough. You don't have to keep proving your worth to people who won't see it. We clinked glasses, toasting to quiet strength. The world outside seemed suddenly wider, the path ahead more open than it had ever been. For the first time, I wondered what life might feel like if I stopped begging for space at a table that was never really set for me. That night, as I crawled into bed, the screenshot was still there on my phone, a small, defiant reminder that I was not imagining things. I wasn't the problem. I had proof. But more than that, I had finally drawn a line, even if it meant standing alone on the other side. The days after my confrontation with Karen stretched out in a kind of gray quiet. Spring in Austin was in full bloom, but I hardly noticed the wildflowers dotting the sidewalks or the way the air warmed just after sunset. I woke up, checked my email, drank my coffee, went through the motions of my work, but something inside me felt newly, strangely still. Family messages grew fewer and farther between. Group chats that once buzzed with activity fell silent, or maybe I'd just been left out of new ones I didn't know existed. On social media, posts kept rolling in more photos of Madison's engagement party, family dinners, cousins huddled together for brunch, everyone tagged but me. Sometimes I'd see a notification pop up, Jessica commented on Madison's post. My thumb would hover uncertain before I'd force myself to put the phone down. The absence was louder than any argument. Even Karen stopped calling as much, her updates about gardening and grocery store sales replaced by short, polite texts. Hope you're well. Don't forget your property taxes are due. I got the message. The invitation to be part of the family narrative had been revoked quietly and completely. Brooke, as always, noticed. She stopped by my condo with coffee and homemade banana bread settling on my couch as if she belonged there. You look like you haven't slept in a week, she teased, though her eyes were gentle. You okay? I don't know, I admitted. It's like I gestured helplessly, searching for words. It's like I've been ghosted by my own family. She nodded, understanding in her eyes. That hurts, Sadie. It's not supposed to be like this. I shrugged, wrapping a blanket around my shoulders. I thought if I just tried harder, if I kept reaching out, it would change. But maybe I'm the only one who even wants things to be different. She shook her head. You're not alone. It just feels that way because you've been surrounded by people who never made room for you. We talked late into the night, laughter and tears mingling, the city lights twinkling outside my window. The next morning, I resolved to stop scrolling through social media, at least for a while. Every time I saw my family celebrating without me, it was like reopening the same old wound. To fill the empty space, I took long walks around Lady Bird Lake, headphones in letting the city's rhythm wash over me. I passed families, picnicking runners, greeting each other with nods and smiles, couples lounging under trees. Sometimes I'd catch sight of a group of women about Madison's age laughing over iced coffee, and I'd wonder what it would feel like to be someone's center instead of a shadow. One night, unable to sleep, I looked through old photos, birthday parties, summer barbecues, Christmas mornings. In every picture, Madison was front and center, radiant and adored. I was there too often off to the side, always smiling, but never quite in the spotlight. I messaged Jessica once late at night, hope you're well, haven't seen you in a while. She responded the next morning, you know how busy everyone is these days. Take care. It was polite but cold, a reminder that the distance wasn't just my imagination. As the weeks passed, the ache of exclusion softened, replaced by something quieter, a realization that I could exist without their approval. My condo became my haven. I worked late, pouring energy into new projects, landing a contract with a local business that actually valued my input. The first time the payment landed in my account, I stared at the numbers, a private victory. I'd built this life for myself piece by piece. Brooke cheered me on. You don't need them, Sadie, she insisted. You never did. Let them play their games. You have your own now. On weekends, we explored new corners of Austin, quirky thrift shops, food truck festivals, rooftop bars with live music. I started to laugh more, the tightness in my chest easing. I let myself imagine a life where family didn't dictate my happiness, where my story could be written on my own terms. Still, there were quiet moments of mourning. I missed the idea of family, the dream I'd chased for so long. But now the dream felt less like a necessity and more like a ghost, something to honor but not to live for. One evening, as the sun set over the skyline, Brooke and I sat on my balcony with glasses of wine. The city glowed gold and pink, the air soft with promise. You know, I said, watching a bird swoop past for the first time, I'm not waiting for an apology or an invitation. I'm just here. Brooke smiled, raising her glass, to letting go of old patterns. I clinked my glass against hers, feeling the truth of her words settle inside me. Maybe, just maybe, this was what freedom looked like, not a grand declaration, but a quiet release, a slow unwinding of ties that no longer served me. And for the first time, the empty space left by my family felt less like a loss and more like room to grow. April crept in with bursts of color, trees heavy with new leaves, wisteria draped along fences, Austin alive with promise. I found myself waking earlier sunlight, sneaking through my curtains, the heaviness in my chest replaced with something that felt like possibility. For the first time in months, I slept through the night. My phone buzzed one morning, an email from a national brand I'd pitched to congratulating me on winning their rebranding contract. I sat at my kitchen table, heart racing, as I read the message twice, then 3 times. It wasn't the biggest job I'd ever landed, but it was mine earned by my own hand, without anyone else's approval or intervention. Brooke was the first person I told. She met me at our favorite local cafe, her smile as bright as the spring Sunday I told you, she said, raising her mug in a toast. You're building something real, on your own terms. That afternoon, I made a decision. The money I'd saved for a wedding gift or a flight to a family event was now mine to use. I booked a massage at a nearby spa, splurged on an overpriced dinner, and spent a lazy Saturday afternoon wandering the shops on South Congress, trying on sunglasses and eating ice cream under the wide Texas sky. I started quietly carving space for myself online and off. One by one, I muted group chats that only brought pain. Family members whose posts left me feeling small were unfollowed or hidden from my feed. For every empty invitation, I created a ritual, treating myself to flowers, a new book, or a solo movie night. The emptiness didn't disappear, but it felt softer, easier to hold. Brooke noticed the change. She invited me to a rooftop bar overlooking the city, just the 2 of us, the night air carrying laughter and the scent of barbecue. We toasted to new beginnings, her arm around my shoulders, my heart lighter than it had felt in years. At home that night, I pulled out a notebook and wrote a letter to Karen. I didn't plan to send it, but I let every word spill out my anger, my hurt, the longing for a family that might never truly exist. I told her how her silence had stung, how being held at arm's length felt worse than any fight. I wrote about the house I'd built with my own savings, the pride I felt signing those closing documents, the quiet pain of knowing no one in my family had ever bothered to visit. By the end, my hand cramped, but my mind was clear. I folded the letter and slipped it into a drawer, a boundary set on paper, if not in real life. The week before Madison's wedding arrived, and with it a strange calm. My mother texted once, "Wedding is next Saturday. Hope you're well. No apology, no invitation, just a reminder that life would go on without me." Instead of dwelling on it, I made my own plans. I scheduled back-to-back meetings, accepted a friend's invitation to a Saturday brunch, and filled my evenings with Brooke's company. We laughed over tacos and margaritas, made lists of things we wanted to do, road trips, art shows, new recipes to try. I realized how much time I'd spent waiting for an invitation that would never come, how many years I'd wasted hoping to belong. The night before the wedding, Brooke brought over a small cake chocolate with raspberry filling and a single candle. We lit it, and I made a wish, blowing it out with a secret smile. Later, I stood on my balcony, the city lights stretched out before me, a soft breeze carrying the distant sound of music. My phone chimed another payment for my contract, the deposit finally clearing. I stared at the numbers, letting them root me in the life I'd chosen for myself. For a moment, I wondered what was happening at Aunt Linda's, if Karen was bustling around, if Madison was laughing with her friends. The ache was still there, but it didn't threaten to swallow me whole. I picked up my phone, scrolled to my list of muted chats, and closed the apps. I wrote one last note to myself: "You're allowed to be happy, even if it's not the way you pictured." The night felt soft, a gentle promise that maybe, just maybe, I was finally enough. The morning of Madison's wedding dawned bright and clear sunlight, glinting off every rooftop in Austin. From the window of my condo, I could see the city already alive, traffic humming, joggers weaving along the trails, distant music drifting up from somewhere downtown. It was the kind of spring day that made everything seem possible. I lay in bed for a long while, my phone silent on the pillow beside me. There were no invitations, no hurried calls from Karen or Aunt Linda, not even a last-minute text from Jessica. Still, I knew the wedding would be in full swing by late afternoon, every detail perfect, every table set just so at Barton Springs Resort. I spent the morning in a gentle routine, brewing strong coffee, watering my balcony plants, letting the sun warm my skin. The ache in my chest had dulled to a soft pulse. When the thought of the wedding surfaced, I breathed it away, telling myself I'd chosen this quiet, chosen not to force my way into a celebration that never meant to include me. It wasn't long before my phone buzzed, breaking the peace. At first, it was just a string of notifications from social media, family members posting group photos at the venue, Madison radiant in white, Aunt Linda with her arm around her daughter Karen, smiling at a table laden with flowers. Even the cousins I hadn't seen in years had made the trip, everyone shining, everyone tagged. Then the messages started. Karen first, her words clipped and formal: "We noticed you're not here. Hope you're doing okay." A minute later, another message: "If you change your mind, you know you're always welcome." I listened to her voicemail, her voice trembling at the edges. "Sadie, it's your mother. I wish you'd reconsider. Madison would want you here. But do what you need to do." I didn't reply. Instead, I snapped a photo of the view from my balcony skyline wildflowers, a single bird perched on the railing, and posted it with a quiet caption: "Here's to new beginnings. No hashtags, no need for validation." Just a soft declaration that my story was still unfolding, even if it wasn't happening at a resort with a $1,000 cake. Throughout the day, more photos appeared online. Madison and her husband on the dance floor, Aunt Linda glowing with pride, tables of guests clinking glasses. I scrolled through the images, searching for a hint of sadness, but everyone looked perfectly content. If I was missing, it went unspoken, my absence quietly woven into the family narrative as if it had always been planned. Later, I saw Jessica's comment on one photo: "Such a beautiful day for the best cousin ever." My chest tightened, but I let the feeling pass, reminding myself that their happiness didn't have to come at the cost of my own. Brooke stopped by that afternoon, a bag of pastries in hand. She joined me on the balcony, both of us watching the city fade into gold. "You doing okay?" she asked, her voice gentle. I nodded. "It hurts, but it also feels like something's finally over, like I can stop fighting." She nodded, understanding. "You did what you needed to do. That's more than most people ever manage." We sat together in easy silence, the sounds of distant celebration drifting on the breeze. For a moment, I thought of the screenshot still saved in my phone, the proof of everything that had gone unsaid and unacknowledged. I forwarded it to my email, just in case, but chose not to use it. Quiet justice didn't always mean blowing things up. Sometimes it meant stepping away and letting the story rewrite itself without you. That night, as fireworks crackled somewhere across the city, I walked down to Barton Springs. The water glimmered under the moon, the world calm and wide. I let myself mourn just for a minute the idea of a family that might have been. Then I breathed deep, feeling the edges of that grief dissolve into something gentler. Standing alone by the water, I realized I didn't need their acceptance to write the next chapter of my life. I had proof of what had happened, and more importantly, I had proof of who I was, someone strong enough to draw a line, to choose peace, and to start again. 2 weeks after Madison's wedding, Austin was alive with spring. The air felt cleaner, the city buzzing with music and flowers. My condo was filled with sunlight corners dotted with new plants and small treasures I'd picked up on afternoons with Brooke. The emptiness I'd carried for so long had shifted, not vanished, but softened around the edges. Work flourished. The branding contract I'd landed a month before was now in full swing my calendar, packed with calls and creative drafts. Payments arrived on time, each deposit a quiet reminder that I was building something real and I was doing it alone. One morning, while repotting a cluster of wildflowers on my balcony, I felt a deep sense of satisfaction. I'd bought the seeds as a gift to myself, a way to reclaim something I once gave away to people who never saw its value. The petals bloomed in shades of purple and gold, a living testament to everything I had survived. I poured coffee and stood by the window watching the sun rise over the city. The ache that once filled my chest was a distant echo. There was no phone call from Karen, no update from Aunt Linda. The family had closed ranks, their world turning smoothly without me in it. Yet for the first time, I didn't feel excluded. I felt free. Brooke was a constant presence, a friend who asked nothing of me but honesty. She stopped by with pastries, new books, or just to sit in silence, her company as steady as the Texas sky. We made plans for the future trips we wanted to take, recipes to try, local art shows to visit. In those moments, I realized family wasn't just blood. Sometimes it was found in the people who stayed, who listened, who chose you day after day. As I sifted through the last of my emails that week, a message caught my eye. It was from Jessica, short and simple. Missed seeing you at the wedding. Hope you're doing okay. I read it twice, unsure how to respond. There was no apology, no invitation back, but also no blame. Just a soft opening, a door left ajar. I thought about replying, but decided to wait. Not out of bitterness, but out of respect for my own boundaries. I wanted connection, but only the kind that honored who I was now. Later that day, I sat at my desk and glanced at the old screenshot still stored on my phone. For a moment, I considered deleting it. Instead, I emailed it to myself, archiving it, not as a weapon, but as a memory. Proof of what had been, but not a prophecy of what was to come. Evenings were quiet and full of peace. I lit candles, opened the windows, let the sound of the city drift in. Some nights I wrote in my journal, letting gratitude outweigh regret. Other nights I simply stood on the balcony, watching the wildflowers move in the wind, feeling the solidity of my own small world. Brooke joined me one weekend for a gardening project. We dug our hands into the soil, laughter mingling with the smell of fresh earth. I told her I used to think family was a photo, everyone together, smiling. Now I think it's what you grow for yourself. She nodded. Not every story ends with everyone at the table. Sometimes the happiest ending is choosing your own seat. On the last night of April, I brewed a final cup of coffee, settled into my favorite chair, and watched the moon rise over Austin. I thought about everything I'd lost, but also everything I'd found. I'd chosen myself, and that choice felt like the beginning of something true. You can't control who invites you to their celebration, but you can always plant your own garden, build your own table, and fill it with light. Sometimes the hardest part of growing up is letting go of the picture you had of family, especially when you've spent years hoping you could earn a seat at someone else's table. Looking back, I realized the emptiness I once feared was really just space room to become myself, to discover quiet joys, and to build a life on my own terms. It wasn't easy. There were nights the loneliness felt too sharp to name, and days when every little win seemed to echo in an empty room. But every time I chose peace over conflict, every time I honored my own boundaries, the burden grew lighter. I learned that self-worth isn't a gift someone else gives you. It's something you claim one day, one choice at a time. If you've ever been left out or let down by the people you thought would always be there, I hope you know you are not alone. Sometimes the family we find or the one we create for ourselves is stronger than the family we're born into. Sometimes the truest belonging comes from choosing yourself. Have you ever stepped back from someone who made you feel small, even if it was painful? I'd love to read your story or your words of encouragement for others down below. And if you found something in my story that resonates, feel free to subscribe or share it forward.